Hi, and welcome to this episode of Panels to Frames. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing why there wasn't a crossover Batman and Superman film in the early 1950s.
This looks like a job for Superman.
At first glance, this may seem like an odd question. It was so long ago, and team-up movies weren't nearly as common back then as they are today, and movies weren't nearly as big. Yes, I get it. But digging just a little bit deeper, and you may question that a bit. For starters, in 1948 and 1950, Superman had two of the most successful movie serials ever, which led to Batman's 1943 film getting a sequel in 1949. And with Superman's popularity skyrocketing, he got another movie in 1951 and a TV show the following year, making him a household name. So I'm sure kids, as well as their parents, were aware of who these two characters were. Both of them are, obviously, based on characters from the same comic company, DC. But they also had a lot of other similarities behind the scenes. The 1948 and 50 Superman serials and the 1949 Batman film were made by the same movie studio, Columbia. Producer, Sam Katzman, and director, Spencer Gordon-Bennett. The movies even had actors that were in each of them. The man who plays Commissioner Gordon in the Batman movie also plays Lex Luthor in the 1950 Superman film, and the man who plays Superman, Kirk Allen, was almost cast as Batman for the 1949 film. So there was a lot of familiarity behind the scenes and in the production team that had worked on each character. And even though movie crossovers weren't all that common, there is still some precedent for them. In the early 1940s, the same year as the first Batman movie serial in 1943, Columbia's rival studio, Universal, released Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, a crossover movie set in their Monsters universe, which kicked off a few crossover films for them. So it's not like the concept was unheard of in cinema, and Superman even dipped into the versus genre with the 1950 serial Atom Man vs. Superman, so it was even familiar to the character in the name. We also can't forget the medium in which Batman and Superman come from. Comic books. Comic companies love teaming up heroes because it usually garners so much interest. In fact, going back to 1941, Superman and Batman and Robin appeared in The World's Finest Comics, a very popular comic that often saw the pair crossing over. And during this period, they were both on the Justice Society of America team. So putting these two together wasn't exactly a foreign or mind-blowing concept, even for the time. And let's be honest, Hollywood, just like any industry, loves making money, and why wouldn't they have at least tried to do this? It just made so much sense. You have the rights to two of the biggest heroes on the planet, and so much continuity behind the scenes, and they were doing really well on their own. Why not team them up? I guess in hindsight, with what we know now, it is surprising that there is no record of this even being attempted or thought about. But on the flip side, team-up movies were not commonplace back then. It's something that didn't really become a thing until the 1960s, when everyone was doing it. From King Kong and Godzilla to Batman himself with the Green Hornet. And as we talked about a little bit on this channel, movie serials were cheap and dying off at this point. So if they made this, they probably would have had to put in a real budget for a feature film. And this larger budget probably would have caused Sam Katzman, who had a reputation for his cost-cutting measures, to have second thoughts about the idea. Because it would likely mean that he would have to pay two lead actors, come up with a special effects budget for two heroes, 3 if you include the immensely popular Robin, and make a script that made sense. And it can be argued that to this day, movie studios still haven't been able to make a workable and likable script that pairs these two up with all of the canceled movies that they've had over the years. Finally, studios infamously didn't really adhere to the comics back then, so even if it did happen, it probably wouldn't have been what we expected. The first Batman and Superman movies didn't even use villains original to the comics, so there's reason to believe that they would have made one up rather than using Lex Luthor or the Joker here.
Oh, that is enough.
Although it's fun to think about in this age of giant crossover movies we've admittedly been spoiled with, in the end, the answer is we simply don't know. We can't even be sure that this was something that they thought about or considered, but hindsight is 2020. And what's obvious to us in this golden age of team-ups and after years of movie franchise crossovers, maybe didn't even cross their minds back then. Maybe all of this is just wishful thinking on my part, but the universe gave them a fastball right down the middle of the plate, and they struck out looking. If you want to see what something like this could have looked like, I recommend this video from New York Magazine from a few years ago. It's from about the time when Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice was released, and there's even a comic released in March 2021 that sort of puts these heroes of the time together in the film serial world. Thank you everyone so much for watching this. Let us know what you think in the comments. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you again soon.